Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Matters of Public Importance right here on Channel 6. I'm yours, Gail Teixeira, Opposition Chief Whip, representing the People's Progressive Party, civic members of Parliament, and the People's Progressive Party. On this program, we shall focus on matters of public importance, bringing you information and discussions on issues of importance to you, the Guyanese public, every Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30, right here on Channel 6. And before we get into the meat of the program, let me, as always, remind you of the numbers to call in, 225-0010 and 225-008. And as I always inform you, the Office of the Leader Opposition is open, 304 Church Street, opposite Border Ground, cricket ground that is, and between New Garden Streets and Peter Road Streets. And we're open from Monday to Saturday and Monday to Fridays from 9 to 5 o'clock, and on Saturdays from about 9 to about 1:32. So you're welcome to pop in. There are members there who are there to take care of your interests. If you have any issues you wish to raise or matters you want to have clarified, or you need guidance on representational matters, please feel free to pop in and visit our offices. It doesn't matter who you voted from. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. We're there to serve the people of Guyana. And as you know, Freedom Radio is on the airwaves. FM 91.1 Demerara, 90.5 Berbice, and 90.7 Essequibo, where we have a wide variety of programs, including call-in programs, political discussions, etc. So please feel free to call in. Well, and sorry, I forgot to give you the numbers, 2319546 and 2319547 for when those are the numbers for the call-in programs at when you're listening to Freedom Radio. Well, the last 2 weeks we've focused on the July 9th Camp Street jailbreak and fire, and the July 24th Lusignan jailbreak, and the inept way the government handled these events. They've included, by the way, in their defense for their incompetence, blaming the PPP government for the things that are going wrong under their watch. I mean, it's over 2 years, so start taking responsibility for things that are happening under their watch. Don't you think so? But this government has a serious problem with priorities, and we'll deal with that. Last time we dealt with a number of the priorities that they gave to Durban Park and to the wall around Office of the President, for example, the fortress, I call it. And therefore neglecting other areas, including the prisons. I told you the last time that we tabled a motion for debate on the July 9th Camp Street jailbreak and fire and the Lusignan, what is called Lusignan prison pasture jailbreak. And as I said last week, the motion will be scrutinized by the Speaker, and he will decide if it will go in or not, and he will amend it as he does all of our motions, questions, etc. And of course, he amends them on what he thinks are unnecessary in his opinion. Unfortunately for him, the standing orders do not give him that discretion. The standing orders very clearly say on what basis a motion can be deemed inadmissible, and our motions do not go in that direction at all. However, the Speaker has designed a new category called unnecessary in his opinion, and so, no surprise, the motion has been radically cut and altered and changed and so on. And so, did I tell you the last time that we have an additional APNU AFC MP in the Parliament? Think about it. We spoke of the government's abysmal performance implementing the 2017 budget, like in 2016, and these admissions were made by no less than the Minister of Finance, Mr. Jordan. The week before last, we spoke about the President's stated report in the state media, where he accused the parliamentary opposition of uncooperativeness to the level of being dysfunctional. And this is a quote I'm giving, so, quote, uncooperativeness to the level of being dysfunctional, unquote, and of an, quote, inflexible opposition as it relates to cooperation and engaging in talks, end quote. End quote. We examine that statement in detail then, and we shall return to that issue again today. And the reason why we're returning this issue this week is that the President has made claims of the opposition uncooperativeness this time, referring to the RDC number 5. And, in fact, going even broader, all the regions that have been won by the PPP, and even the local authorities won by the PPP. So it's the entire PPP leadership and supporters, etc., who are being uncooperative. And did I say Region 5? Do you recall what was happening in Region 5 last year? Yes, Region 5, where Carol Joseph and her APNU AFC councillors prevented the majority PPPC RDC from meeting for 6 months. And even though Ms. Joseph is no longer a councillor, and you all know the reasons why, they were all publicised, the same APNU AFC councillors are repeating the performance. The government-owned media, dated August the 1st, Guyana Chronicle, headline shouted, Region 5 councillors uncooperative, president. And it goes on to say that the President, David Granger, on Tuesday expressed disgust at the resistance of the People's Progressive Party to government. And in response to a question posed by members of the media on the state of the RDC Council of Region 5, Mahaika Berbice, the President said, many PPP councillors are, quote-unquote, uncooperative. He went on to say, quote, many times the Minister of Communities would call a meeting and they would not show up. The regional chairman wouldn't show up. The councillors wouldn't show up, and the mayor too, lamented President Granger. Well, hello, Mr. President. There is no municipality in Region 5. Maybe he's getting the region mixed up, as he's having quite a bit of problems in Region 10, isn't he? Between the RDC and the mayor, etc., etc. And the same article went on to say, quote, he made it clear that his administration is not opposed to talks with the opposition on non-constitutional matters, but noted that it's good to speak with people who are not prepared to speak with you, and we've had some difficulties. The head of state cited several examples, including his address to the National Assembly at the beginning of every session and budgetary consultations. For example, last October, the article says, quoting the President, I addressed Parliament to lay out the legislative agenda and the financial considerations, and the entire opposition was absent. No, Mr. President. We have had 2 sessions, but you have addressed the Parliament 5 times. And no, your speech in October 2016 was not on these matters, as you claim, but an assault of the PPP, accusing it for the troubled times. The speech is on the Parliament website for you to read. And of the 10 pages in the President's speech, 5 alone, you see, look, I've circled them in bright colors, notably yellow, for you to see the attacks on the PPP. So, sorry, I'm just having difficulty with my right hand, as you might notice. And so, there, yellow and green again, all over the place, where the accusations are made against the PPP. So all this talk about national unity, and you want to talk, and you're setting a stage in which it is aggressive, antagonistic, and blaming everybody else for everything else that's gone wrong. So, and of course, he expects cooperation, because aren't we listening to the emperor? And all of us must obey. You know, as a child, I remember listening to Danny Kaye's song. The children of this generation probably have never heard that song, you know, about the emperor's new clothes. And maybe we need to start teaching some of the teenagers who may be voters in 2020 about the emperor's new clothes, because it has a lot of reflection on what's going on here. It goes on to say, the article, when the budget consultations take place, they send a junior person or they don't participate at all. The reform of the sugar industry, the attendance is very spotty. There has been a very low level of cooperation on the part of the opposition, quote unquote, said President Granger. He noted that the resistance by the opposition does not exist only at the level of central government, but also regionally. Quote unquote, I have been to some meetings and the regional chairman won't come to meet me. The Minister of Communities has had seminars and the persons who are being elected on the PPP ticket don't show up, municipal and regional levels. Really? Really, Mr. President? The regional chairmen have turned up, except once Region 9 chairman, Mr. Alicock, who didn't meet you at the Lethem airport when you went to hold an APNU election rally for the Lethem municipality during the local government elections. So you weren't doing your presidential duty, you were being the General Secretary of the Apno AOC. These are fine lines that have to be observed. The regional chairman is a representative of Region 9. But he doesn't have to go to a political rally, nor does he have to when a president is doing political work and not presidential work. What about a few weeks ago when the same regional chairman traveled with the mayor of Lethem all the way from Lethem to Anai to meet the president, who was going to donate a David G. bus to the Anai community, and you didn't acknowledge their existence. You ignored them completely. Someone is either misinforming the president or he's having memory lapses. Isn't he the one that said that regional chairman RDC 5, who didn't meet him in 2015, and which led to 6 months of the RDC not being able to function thanks to Carol Joseph and her gang? Isn't it the same president that said he didn't have to apologize to him? Wasn't it the same regional chairman who met the president with Carol Joseph on Emancipation Day 2016, and everyone hugged and buried the hatchet and gave thanks to the Lord? Well, exactly a year later, on Emancipation Day, no less, the same president is accusing the same regional chairman and the PPP RDC councillors of being uncooperative. Think about it. Does it make sense? You know, the issue, I'll continue quoting. He says, "We expect resistance from the opposition, but it is uncooperative to the level of being dysfunctional. And if you have a system in which the regional administration refuses to cooperate with central government, it is beyond defiance. It starts to become dangerous. And I think the opposition has to bear responsibility for that." End quote, the president added. Is that a threat? Think about it. Is that a threat? Now let's examine these statements by the president as quoted from the state media report. And I'll repeat some of the things I said 2 weeks ago and add some new ones. The first sitting we attended was August the 17th, 2015, and the leading opposition made a statement of our support for matters that will benefit our people and nation and criticism of matters which will hurt our people and nation. This mantra we have repeated throughout the Parliament since we have started going in August 2015, and publicly. Hence, after that opening of Parliament, there was a meeting between the President and the leading opposition in December 2015. The leading opposition publicly and in that meeting officially gave his and the PPP's support to the government on Guyana's territorial sovereignty and integrity with regard to the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy. That the President need not have any doubt of the PPPC's support on the issue of Guyana's territorial integrity. And in fact, the only area of formal cooperation between the government and the parliamentary opposition, is through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, led by Mr. Greenwich, on the matter of Guyana's territorial integrity with Venezuela. And yours truly is a member of the advisory team that the minister set up. So I'm one of 25 people approximately who sit and prepare and discuss matters that are brought to the UN and the Secretary General of the UN in regards to Guyana's territorial integrity. That's the only area of formal cooperation. But somehow that's not even referred to by the President in his earlier statement or the more recent one. And that same meeting with the President talked about in setting up a number of committees where they could have cooperation, one of which was border and security, which the leader of the opposition offered support. There's been no follow-up on that offer since then. One of the reasons given for the statement by the President with regards to the absence of the parliamentary opposition when he made his fifth address to the Parliament, and I want to remind you, the day he made his address to the Parliament, it was private members' day. That is opposition members' day. We had waited 4 months to get our day in Parliament. And it just happened to be this was the only day that the government could have the president address the Parliament. We asked the Speaker and the government to either bring the president the day before us or the day after us. And that was all refused. And therefore, valuable time for the opposition, after waiting months, was eaten up. And by the way, this was the same sitting where the government said it had to end the sitting early, as there was another state function that they had to attend where the president would be attending. So our time was reduced both at the beginning by the address by the president, and the time was curtailed by the government in that they could not be present for the rest of the sitting. Parliamentary life has become one of bullyism and the undermining of the standing orders. Not one amendment, not one motion of the opposition has been accepted, even ones that are of national importance and where there should be no partisan views, such as curbing suicide and the one on crime, both in 2016. The opposition cannot even get an agreement on a date for its opposition day unless it is a day the government can have all 33 of its MPs in place. That is why the National Assembly has only been able to meet on average once a month outside of budgetary matters. This government in the legislature has a policy position. It is their way or no way. They refuse to accept any proposed changes to do with these 200 taxes that have been brought in regard to VAT on education, VAT on health, etc. And this you see reports in the press about. Outside of Parliament, the President refers to discussions on sugar, etc. and budget. The budget talks in 2016 and 2017. These were addressed to the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party. We requested to have information to guide us on making considered proposals on the budgets. There was no response and no provision of data. How can you participate in budget talks, prior to, of course, the budget coming, when you don't have figures and data, unless you're on an expedition of imagination, which is of no use at this point. Budgets are about reality, money, the availability of money, and the performance of the economy. That's what budgets are based on. So we are not window dressing for anyone. We're not going there to sit and smile and just sit there for decoration, and then the budget is brought and they'll say, oh, the PPP was there and was part of this budget debate. No. If we don't have the data, and you have heard us in Parliament on these budget debates, we have fought for data and argued for them to present information, which you've been very reluctant to do. It's like pulling teeth. But, so that's budgets. The comment was made about the sugar and the sugar talks. Let's go to that. Their own commission inquiry on Gaisuco that cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, they have thrown out. They've dissed the whole thing. And just to let you know, the PPP had made a submission to the commission inquiry on Gaisuco. And attempts to discuss the closure of Wales Estate was not allowed in Parliament. And you do know that, and I remind you, that on December 30th, we were hurriedly invited as the PPP for talks on the very next day, December 31st, on sugar. And we sent a high-level delegation, not a junior partner. Mr. Rohi, at that time, was the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party. I don't know what higher you want. Irfan Ali, a former minister and an economist. Mr. Dharamkura Siraj, also a person who understands the economy, agriculture, and representative of the rice sector. You also had trade unions present there, including GAU. All they wanted at the meeting wasn't to really talk about how could we save sugar. This was their argument, this is what they wanted, and they were looking for buy-in. And after GAU submitted their proposals, talks kind of petered out. And that was December, January. And you know what? Recently, a letter sent from the Ministry of the Presidency to a Mr. Wesley Curtin. I think he lives in Florida. Prior to the December 2016 talks on sugar, revealed the government's plan to close 3 more estates and sell Skeldon. And this was all in train prior to the invitation to come to the talks, both of the PPP and the trade unions, in December 2016. Let's go to another issue, the appointment of the chairman for GCOM. You know the story. We have submitted 2 lists and keep 2 sets of names in keeping with constitutional provisions. The president has rejected both. It is now 9 months that GCOM has no chair and the commission can't function. The commission is made up of a chair, 3 appointed by the government, 3 appointed by the opposition. That's what the Constitution demands. That's what the Constitution calls the commission. The secretariat, the staffing, and everything supports the GCOM, the commission. But the commission, by the Constitution, and the decisions made, and the signing of the chairman of orders and so on to allow for continuous registration, for the list to be prepared, the list to be extracted for elections, exclusively in the domain of the commission, including the chairman. So for 9 months, who's watching the milk? You know, the cat's around, milk's there, and nobody's watching the cat nor the milk. A gentleman called Marcel Gaskin went to the courts on the interpretation of the Constitution with regards to the interpretation of Article 161(2). The Chief Justice ruled vindicating the position taken by all of those in the parliamentary opposition and other civil society and legal practitioners, and added an opinion on a matter that was not before the court in Article 162. Surprisingly, what was the president's reaction? He said in the media that, quote, the CJ, Chief Justice, gave an opinion based on her perception of the law, and I will continue to act with my perception of the Constitution. Whoa, wait. Does the president really realize what he has said and done? Well, we know what happened after that. The Attorney General and the government media tried hard to do damage control on that statement. Too late. The cat is out of the bag. You know, sometimes they say, don't put your foot in your mouth. Well, that was one of putting your foot in your mouth. And of course, to make matters worse, another person puts their foot in their mouth. Just yesterday, Minister Bulkan is reported as saying in the Guyana Chronicle, and I'm quoting from the Guyana Chronicle, Minister Bulkan explained today that despite the absence of a GCOM chairman, that its work continues in preparation for the elections, that is, local government elections, which is slated for next year, adding, the absence of a chairman is not affecting the work of GCOM. The minister also said that the country's 2018 local government elections will proceed without any issues. The minister explained that there's time for the ministry to fill the vacant position at the GCOM in time for local government elections next year. So the vacancy of the chairman of the GCOM is not affecting preparations for local government elections in December 2018. Can you believe that? First of all, let's do some fact checking. The ministry does not fill the chairman of the GCOM. Where has he been living? We all know. The leading opposition gives 6 names. If those names are rejected to the president, he gives another 6, and he gives another 6, and he continues going, giving another 6, according to the ruling of the Chief Justice, which supports our view that we came with since last year, pointing out that this was how the Constitution worked. The Constitution dictates how the Commission works, And it is not the Secretariat, not the Chief Elections Officer, Lowenfield, who is responsible for the management of the elections, but the GCOM made up of the chairman and 6 commissioners. And I'll ask you a question. If this, we're now going for the 3rd set of names to the president, and were we to keep going on ad nauseum, how would you have elections in 2018 for local government? It is the chairman who issues an order to extract the voters list from what is called the database of all the names of all the registrants, which includes people that are 14 and above who have been registered. It is his order, gazetted, signed by him, that allows an electoral list to be prepared. So, as my conclusion is that Mulcan is speaking for the government, and there appears to be no hurry to appoint the chairman. So I ask you, can the president really be believed when he says the opposition is uncooperative to the point of being dysfunctional? Actually, who is being dysfunctional? Or is it that the president is living in an alternate world? Alternate world. I've referred to the government and the cabinet on this program many, many, many times of living in la la land. Totally out of touch with reality. Totally out of touch with reality. The president's comments imply that the government wants the opposition to be physically present and to nod politely to everything the government does and says. That's the bottom line. I told you about the emperor's new clothes. Think about it. There is no good faith efforts on the side of this government. It is all their way or no way. And I remind you, remember I said after the May Day rally and the program that came immediately after that, I quoted from what? The ministers who spoke, both Minister Amna Ali and Minister Trotman, Raphael Trotman, who spoke on behalf of the president. I spoke on behalf of the leading opposition, Mr. Jack Dale. And what did he say? What did Mr. Trotman say? That the government wants the trade unions to fully support all of the government's initiatives. So the trade unions must behave and support all of the government initiatives. The private sector must obey and agree to all of the government initiatives. And the opposition must do the same. Otherwise, you're considered dysfunctional, uncooperative, and dangerous. And you're being defiant, PPPC. And that's not acceptable. You know, viewers, what I'm describing, it's not democracy. Democracy is built on differences of opinions and mechanism of how to bring those views to the fore. And there will be minority views and majority views. And sometimes you have to agree to disagree. But democracy is based on a foundation of freedom of expression, of being able to have your beliefs, of being able to articulate your beliefs. So this is not democracy we're seeing going on. This is creeping authoritarianism. Creeping authoritarianism. But you know something, viewers? The signs of what we're seeing here unfolding in Guyana in the last 2 years didn't just suddenly come about, you know. We saw certain things that happened in the 10th Parliament that APNU and AFC, led by the leading opposition, Mr. Granger, we saw that they had these tendencies. And let me give you a couple examples, in case you don't believe me. And that's why we warned people in the 2015 elections, beware, beware, we said. Fundamental to cooperation and consensus building is good faith efforts. And so I remind you, in the 10th Parliament, where the then opposition vetoed $90 billion in the budgets of the People's Progressive Party, which were for Amerindian Development, the Ministry of the Presidency, the public servants, NCN, roads, airports, runways, etc., etc. $90 billion, 450 million US dollars was cut from the budgets of the PPC. Is that a patriotic position? Is that a pro-people position? You think about it. And then, of course, we have the famous one of blocking the Anti-Money Laundering and Counting Financing Terrorism Amendment Bill, which would amend the 2009 Act and bring it in greater accordance with the standards that have been approved and keep being advanced by FATF at the international level. Twice they rejected. Twice they blocked it, putting Guyana on the watch list for targeted review at the FATF, with a lot of consequences for our country and economy, as well as bad name. Put us on a watch list. And of course, the last example I want to give you is the Amila Falls Hydro Project, when the investors wanted to have a parliament that was unanimous in supporting the bill that would allow the Amila Falls to go through. And of course, you know what happened. They did not support it, and therefore the investor pulled out. And that was because the temperature was getting so hot that any investor coming in wanted to make sure, because there was elections sometime in the future, we weren't at that point having a no confidence motion, but investor wanted to make sure their assets and their investment were protected. And when they saw what happened in Parliament and what was going on, they pulled out. The President's most recent statement is a serious threat to the People's Progressive Party. Remember what he said when I quoted from the article. Quote, "It is beyond defiance. It starts to become dangerous. And I think the opposition has to bear responsibility for that." End quote. Isn't that a threat? Because if it believes that we're being defiant and it starts to become serious, then shall we be responsible for the consequences? And who will mete out those consequences? As I said, words mean a lot. And these words of the President, in my mind, are loaded. But not only is the government and the President threatening the parliamentary opposition and the PPPC for its control of 7 of the 10 RDCs and 65% of the local authorities, it is aiming its attention and threatening and undermining the civil law enforcement agency of this country, the Guyana Police Force, by a commission of inquiry to probe and investigate the way the Guyana Police Force managed the allegation or the information saying there was a plan to attempt to assassinate the President. We don't have a problem with the President setting up commissions of inquiry. That's his right under the Constitution. But we have problems with this one. And why? And I'll give you the reasons why. After months of public announcement that a commission inquiry would be appointed to invest these allegations of a plan to assassinate the President waited until July 12, 2017, to proceed to gazette the lengthy terms of reference and to appoint a former Assistant Commissioner of Police, Paul Slow, to essentially investigate the Commissioner of Police, the crime chief, and the entire hierarchy of the Guyana Police Force for the way it managed the investigation of an allegation of, quote, an intention or plan to assassinate the President, end quote. Noteworthy is that these allegations surfaced in March 2017. March 2017. March, April, May, June, July. 5 months on such an important issue as a threat, a plan, intention to assassinate our President? You sit for 5 months and do nothing? This decision, maybe the government just has some bad karma out there. But this decision coming on July 12th, a few days after the July 9th Georgetown Prison's Camp Street fire and jailbreak, which, as you know, destroyed over 80% of the prison. 6 prisoners walked out in what was well orchestrated and planned event. The timing is incomprehensible. Even if it was in train, presidents put a halt on things when something emerges that would throw it completely off kilter. But unless we're robotic, and yes, it's in the plan, it has to be done, go ahead and do it, then you're left with an incomprehensible position. Funny enough, too, is this commission of inquiry is the first that the APNU AFC government is having in public, with public hearings that have been reported in the press. And so, this is the first of 15 commissions of inquiry. And isn't it rather strange at this critical time, when the Guyana police force is stressed and under duress, the commissioner of police, the crime chief, inspectors, detectives, and other ranks of the police force are being summoned to appear before the commissioner, Paul Slow, and be grilled publicly? Surely one must ask, is this a priority now? If you waited from March to July, and you have the July 9th jailbreak and all the things that have happened since, well, couldn't you wait a while? Or is this a distraction in the midst of these major events, to have the police running to appear before the commission when they should be out searching for the escapees and investigating who were the persons behind the July 9th fire and jailbreak, who were the persons behind the Losing Nan pasture jailbreak and disturbances, who orchestrated all these things, who are the persons who orchestrated all these things. Certainly, as I said, we acknowledge the president's right. But I can't comprehend, when the president's life and safety is at risk, why you would wait all these months to set up a commission inquiry when you said you were going to do it 4 months ago. What is the agenda here? What are we looking at here? Many people believe it's a distraction. And that has merit. That argument has merit. But there's another argument. And is this commission of inquiry to damage the image of the Guyana Police Force more than it's already damaged by embarrassing and undressing the leadership of the police force in order to decapitate the leadership and put other people in charge? Think about it. But certainly the government's priorities seem to be misplaced, because the Guyana Police Force, as a member of the disciplined forces of this country's responsibility at this time is to capture the escapees, restore law and order in the prison, and restore public safety. That is the most important issue right now on the agenda. But you know, before I wrap up, that's not all that's going on. Last lick, as we say. In the midst of all this that's taking place, within a declining economy, the productive sectors are in trouble. All the sectors are in trouble. And the government is making some rather strange decisions in relation to gold to even impact on the one sector that is bolstering this economy and keeping it up. In all of this atmosphere, the government now brings the Broadcasting Amendment Bill that's listed to be debated today in Parliament. It, according to the broadcasters, licensed broadcasters, there was no consultation with them by the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority, nor with the minister, that is the Prime Minister and First Vice President, who is responsible for broadcasting. And so no consultations with the broadcasters, including Channel 6 broadcaster, who was a license. This amendment will impose further infringements on freedom of expression and on the media. Within 30 days of the bill being enacted, that is signed by the President, all broadcasters will lose their licenses and they will have to reapply again. And that means they don't know if they will be granted a license again. So they have to relinquish their licenses. As a result of this, of course, all the system has been changed. So what may have cost a television station to get a license 2, 3, and 4 million is costing 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 million, based on new system of how the broadcasting spectrum has been divided in the country. So the broadcasters have written to the Prime Minister on Monday seeking a deferral of the bill to allow for further consultations and to have a voice on what the bill brings into the Parliament. Well, as of today, there's been no response, and I understand that, they sent it Monday, Tuesday was a holiday, Wednesday was Cabinet because Tuesday was a holiday, so Cabinet's Wednesday, and so the Prime Minister hasn't had a chance to look at it yet. That's what I hear through the grapevine. So we'll only know when we get to Parliament whether the bill will go through or won't. But don't be surprised if they ram this bill through as they have others. Don't be surprised that some broadcasters may lose their licenses to operate, and some channels will disappear, especially those that carry programs that are critical of the government. And don't be surprised that some broadcasters may do self-censorship and decide that they want to keep their licenses, that's their livelihood. They want to be able to keep their channels, and therefore they might not allow programs such as this one, which is critical of the government. So, busy times, keeping you busy. And as I said, all of this points to creeping authoritarianism, control freakism, control, and by control, one limits human rights, and in particular, what is being discussed today and what I raised today, in two instances, the freedom of expression, and the other case is a threat to national security. So let's open the lines so that some of you will have a chance to have a say. Today is Parliament, so I will have to stop dead on 1:30 because I've got to rush over there. So let's see. Anybody calling in? Okay. I've said before, please, I need to have a telephone number, if you don't mind. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, welcome to Matters of Public Importance. What would you like to say?
The man should close down the sugar estate.
Yes.
And they want to give people land, and in Victoria, Golden Grove, Nabarclays, Buxton, and Pleasance, and so, the people got their own land and they can't plant it. Where they don't give people area for plant. The Macrosia estate for aisle, and then you see one drop aisle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you won't see oil for a couple of years. But anyway, it's very clear that the government has their priorities all wrong. Because there's nothing to stop us as a country having sugar and oil and gold and diamonds and bauxite and timber. It's nothing to stop us, and rice, of course. The more we produce, the better. The more diversified the economy, the better. Okay, thank you very much for calling in. Hi, good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Cost of living are very, very high. We
Yes.
live in the college of East Coast. Then in a look after the road, you got to pay a whole set of money for coming with taxi.
Yeah.
They only do a part of the road, and in the scheme itself inside,
Which scheme is this?
Collingwood.
Oh, Collagen. Uh-huh.
This road them are very bad, and I don't know what the government is doing about it. He ain't looking after it. They only do a part in front, and the other part in the scheme, the whole are big, big.
Yes, I know. I've been down some of those areas, and with the heavy rains we've had, they played havoc on those roads as well. Those are already in bad condition. They've got worse.
Yes, and then people not get job like before. You really struggle to get work and everything just
I
right
know.
now.
No, things are really hard, and they're going to get worse.
And costs are very, very high.
Yes. Well, I hope the Minister of the Budget, Minister Jordan, is hearing this, because according to the government, the country is doing well, and we're all heading for the good life.
Yeah, well, the road in Collington here needs some light, because from the road when you're coming, it's very dark.
Yes, I know that area.
So,
it is very dark.
All right, then. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Right, bye-bye.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Hello. I think, yeah, someone wasn't answering. Okay, so these are issues when people call in. They call in about the economy, about jobs, about the cost of living, about their surroundings that are deteriorating. And yet when you hear other people from the government, we are all achieving the good life. So let's go to the next caller. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
I would like to find out.
Could you speak up a bit louder for me, please?
I would like to find out something.
Yes.
If Mr. Ranger rejects his orders and he decides that he's going to pick somebody and put them in, what is the PPP going to do? Are we going to sit back, wait for the people to raise another 5-6 election, or the are going to decide to do something?
Okay, good question. Thank you for raising that. Of course, the president cannot name a person. He either has to, we have to keep submitting names after names after names, and or one has to have a negotiated agreement. But there's no way that he can all of a sudden name somebody. And it is very important for us that if this is the direction he wishes to go in, then we have the recourse to the courts. And of course, there's always the right to picket, there's the right to demonstrate. But that would require people, regardless of what political persuasions they are, to recognize that this is a threat to the democracy of our country. It's a serious threat to democracy. And therefore, it's not an interest of the PPPC alone. It's the interest of every democratic-minded or civic-minded person in our country to stop or to prevent or to protest anything like that happening. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Gail.
Hi, good afternoon.
I'm a patient doing dialysis
Yes.
in Dubai Hospital.
In which hospital?
Dubai's.
Oh, the best.
Yes.
Best hospital.
We used to get a drawback from the PPP government,
Yes.
and the cost of the dialysis is so expensive
I know.
that this present government is doing nothing about it.
I know.
Outside Guyana, the government has given patients so much facilities that even they give the dialysis machine with a nurse to their houses to avoid them coming to the clinic. Would you please do something about it?
Yeah, we can raise it. We did. I know that from the leading opposition office, we had written Minister about this issue of the removal of the assistance given to dialysis patients. And the response we got was, yeah, they have, to confirm that they did, but they were not willing, they did not give any indication we're willing to open back up. So we will have to raise this issue. And I believe for the budget discussions in 2018, we need a number of people write letters to the press, write to the Minister of Health, the Minister of Finance, calling on them to restore the the assistance that was given to the dialysis patients. You know, a dialysis patient, if they don't get the dialysis, their life is threatened. It is absolutely essential that they get access to dialysis. So we will try our best, and it would be helpful if people like you also write letters in the press or Facebook or write the ministers so that they know the plight of the dialysis patients, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Hello? Hello? Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
I'm calling to complain about the Best Hospital. I have a sister that's running there a long time to get through with her operation, and every time she climbed up, there is some problem. The tape is not working. Now you hear that the light is not working on the paper, and they have to cancel the operation. Could you tell me what's really going on at the Best Hospital? And they're claiming that this is the Best Hospital. She's traveling from stairs up the escalator, and every time she comes, she has to go back, she has to spend money. Her husband has to spend money for her to come and himself to see that she gets under, she has to go back to her.
What kind of surgery is this, if you don't mind? What area? Is it gynecology, orthopedics? Huh?
Kidney stone.
Yeah. And they haven't referred the patient to Georgetown Hospital? If they can't do it, they're not referring the patients to Georgetown or to any other hospital?
No, refer her, but I advise her because I get fed up of the situation also, and I advise her to ask for transport the next time she comes to
Right.
clinic because I give her a date now to come back to clinic.
Yeah. No, the situation in a number of the hospitals really dread. One, in terms of drugs and medical supplies. Doctors have to have equipment and drugs and medical supplies in order to do surgeries. If they don't have the required things they need, then they can't do the surgeries. And so it's important that we have raised this in Parliament over again. We pointed to the corruption in the health system, and yet the government is doing nothing about it. But a lot of surgeries are being postponed at a number of hospitals which had the capacity. At one time, I believe it's Best, where they were doing some construction above the theatre, and therefore they stopped doing, and this was last year sometime, I think.
Yes, but
It's a long time. It's a long time.
From that area, the Essex area, to come down to the Best because it helps to take out some of the stress from Georgetown Hospital. And
Of course.
They can get this hospital doing
Of course.
surgery.
Of course.
It's very inconvenient to people over that end.
Yeah, of course, and then people can't afford to go private because that costs a lot of money too.
Yes, it costs a lot of money. They can't afford to go to private to do the operation.
Yeah,
I'm asking you if you could raise this matter and see what they could do with the hospital over there.
sure. We'll try to do that, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for calling. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I'll take one more caller. Hi, good afternoon. Oops. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. You're the last caller coming in.
Good morning, Miss Gail.
Yes, good afternoon.
We used to get help on the highway, right? As you know, Lena Clark on Low Quick.
Yes.
Then you used to come at Coyote and then things, we used to get great help from you, but now we ain't getting no help from the government to do nothing.
This is Coyote area?
Yeah, Low Creek.
Oh, Low Creek.
Yeah, your great friend Lena Clark, she's asking you, but she ain't got no contact with you.
Yeah, I'm at the office of the Leader Opposition, Church Street, 304 Church Street.
I told she and she would speak to you, because
Yeah.
she needs to talk to you, because she gets sickly now and she can't get to move about.
Right, but the is the Ministry of Army Affairs or the Ministry of Local Government doing anything in that area at Low Creek?
Okay. I
Is the government doing anything in that area?
No, nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Nothing to do with agriculture, nothing to do with...
Nothing.
Why doesn't the community write the minister? Telling them
Yeah, I
that...
would spoke to her. But,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
But let us know, let her write me too, and let me know what is going on in the area, okay? You hear me? Ask her or any of the members of the community to write me, care of Office of the Leader Opposition, okay? Okay. Well, we've had a program in which we've dealt with some really heavy matters. It is not an easy thing to deal with these issues when you have a president who either is living in an alternate world or is suffering from memory lapses or is misinformed or has another agenda, who knows? But what we've raised today in this program are very serious matters. The foundations of democracy are a little wobbly right now, and what we're seeing is what we are calling creeping authoritarianism taking place. And we've been pointing out the different patterns and trends from 2015 onwards. And it is becoming what some people said, no, this is a new change, this is a new government, give them a chance. Well, it's over 2 years now. And so, you know, it's like a man who abuses his wife. And she says, you know, give him a chance. And the relatives say, give him a chance, you know. He's all right. He was just in a bad mood, had a bad day. His employer gave him a hard time. He didn't make money. And so she keeps giving him chances. But he's still an abuser. And sometimes he ends up killing her. And so things that start in the beginning may look innocent, but when they start becoming patterns of behavior, whether by a government, a person, they're indications of trouble ahead. And so we have trouble ahead. There is creeping authoritarianism. It's the unfolding of creeping authoritarianism taking place in Ghana. And so you have a blessed week. And we'll meet again next Thursday right here on Matters of Public Importance between 12:30 and 1:30. And I'll close with this theme that I've been using for the last few weeks. And I'll close with it again, because we need to be strong and we need to have courage. And we must stand up and let no one silence us. And so I'll read from the quote I've read for the last couple of weeks. And struggle we shall, and silent we shall not be. Silence is the greatest enemy to democracy. Silence makes those in power think they can get away with anything. Silence helps those who want more control and less democracy. Silence allows those who want to move this country, to a police state. And at the next elections, the people will make their votes count again, and there will be a change. And we in the PPPC government shall have to start all over again, as in 1992, to reconstruct, to put this economy back on a firm and stable footing, and restore the programs which help the poor and the vulnerable, and those at risk, and restore the independence of the judiciary and the legislature from executive interference. You have a wonderful week. Don't drink and drive. Drive safely, and have a good week with your families. Thank you very much. Goodbye. See you next week. Matters of Public Importance, right here on Channel 6. Ta-ta.